Sure, sure. So the PPI, the way it works is there are country-specific scorecards. We have the PPI developed for about 50 different countries. It's a 10-question survey. I'll just show you an example of it.
All right.
10 questions, and
okay, all on one page.
Yeah, all on one page, right? And it's based on a country's sort of national income and expenditure survey. And the Mark Schreiner is the gentleman who develops these poverty scorecards that then become PPIs. And essentially, he comes up with 10 questions that are the most closely linked with the results of that income and expenditure survey, and are sort of the most practical and easy to answer in a survey like this. And so basically, then a score is created based on the answers that a person would give to this 10-question survey. And then that score, you go to a lookup table that's developed for each particular PPI, and you look up, based on the score, a percentage likelihood that that person is under a number of different poverty lines. Grameen Foundation saw that there was, in general in the microfinance industry, not enough poor, individuals being served. And there really was not a good way of determining how poor clients actually were. It's very difficult to do it based on income, especially in, with poor clients, they have multiple income sources. It's variable. Self-reported income is not very reliable. And so we partnered with Mark Schreiner, and there are a number of funders who supported this work, including the Ford Foundation and CGAP, to develop these scorecards. And so we've been working since about 2005 with Mark to develop the scorecards and provide the documentation and support for organizations to be able to implement them and use the data for analysis and drive towards what we really want, which is being able to use that information to get more poor clients, as well as design more appropriate products and services for them.
Okay. And tell me about the typical organization that starts to implement the PPI. What do they find? How do they respond to the results?
Yeah. And, the PPI can be used by any organization with a mission to serve the poor. So it's certainly not just microfinance institutions. And so the PPI users we have worked with are very diverse in their services and operations and experiences, but it is common for microfinance institutions to discover that their client portfolio is really, on average, less poor than they had thought it was. And I think that's common in all types of organizations, but it is easy, and most do assume, just by knowing the clients that they serve and looking at them, that they're poor. But usually the results indicate that their clients are not as poor as they had thought.
So how do organizations respond when they get this survey back that says their clients aren't as poor as they thought they were?
Well, certainly there's, I think often a bit of defensive-ness, or, sort of like, maybe disbelief that that's true. But I think once they really let it sink in, those that have a mission to really, really serve the poor, will decide to take some action. And certainly one main action is just, having a poverty outreach target and being able to measure how poor the clients are that they're serving, and to have a target for that.
And so let's say you get that information, you're not, your mission is to reach very poor clients. A lot of your clients are not in that group, and you want to reach more very poor clients. How does an organization go about using that data to try and better reach their target group?
So the PPI can definitely be used for targeting. I mean, that's one major way. So if you found that you're not serving, as poor of clients as you had thought or hoped that you had planned to, you can use the PPI as a targeting tool. So for all new clients or prospective clients, you take the PPI and make sure that you aren't excluding the poor ones. You might have certain targets cutoffs for reaching poorer clients. So use it for targeting. You'd also use it for product design, making sure that poorer clients aren't excluded from your services just based on how the products are designed. And I have one example about that actually from the work that I was doing with Card Bank in the Philippines. We were taking the PPIs of all of the customers of a new savings product, and because of the financials, looking at sort of what we needed to do to make the product viable, we actually sort of started out with a higher opening balance of maybe about 1,000 pesos, which is about $25. And, the first few months of the pilot, we didn't see, as much take-up of that new product as we had projected and hoped for. And so we decided to really drastically lower that opening balance. So we lowered it to 100 pesos, so just about $2.50. And we experienced significant, increase then in sort of people opening that new account after we lowered it. And we looked at the PPI scores of before and after. And before, about 27% of the clients that had opened that account were below the $2.50 day line. And afterwards, not only did we see an increase in the number of clients opening that account, but we saw about a 7 to 8% increase in the number that were below that $2.50 day line. So it's a pretty significant, increase, and also just really good information that this product is now more, attractive and appealing to the poorer segment with this lower opening balance. And, that's probably could be sort of okay, that's common sense. Or seems logical, but it was good hard data to have,
right,
so that, if the finance department, as we were, then evaluating the profitability and the financials of the products, and if, if it was pointed out that, hey, this savings account is losing money or not doing as well as we had wanted it to financially, we could make that argument with hard data that, well, it is serving our poor segment, and that's what we want it to do. So then it's worth, the cost or the trade-off on the income for that. Yes, absolutely. And, as the name suggests, the Progress Out of Poverty Index, that is, sort of one of the initial intended uses of it. We really actually don't have a lot of data yet, or a lot of organizations that have collected that data. You have to be able to collect PPI scores on the same individuals over a period of time. And I think we recommend that it not be, more than 3 years apart.
All right.
So there are a number of MFI. There are a few MFIs that are now trying to track consistently, and we're in the process of doing some analysis on several MFIs that have been tracking that data on the same clients over time. And so within the next few months, certainly later this year, we're going to be producing some case studies and a report about that. And one disclaimer, we're also, careful when we're talking about measuring, progress over time using the PPI, that certainly it can, the PPI can tell an organization, if its clients have moved out of poverty, but it can't say that, the microfinance services or any of the services,
right.
Actually caused it. So.
Right. Yeah, it can show a correlation, but not a causation.
Exactly.
And to do that, it would seem the organization, the best way to do it would be to be tracking PPI on every client at each cycle.
Right.
And have a unique client identifier so you can check the same clients over time.
Exactly. The best, sort of best practices that we would advocate for are to embed the PPI survey in the regular sort of loan or service approval process, so that new clients, get it at the time that they come on board, and then anytime a loan is renewed, that's being taken again. And ideal is to be able to sort of get that data into your database, or you have it be part of your core banking system so that it's automated, and you have that PPI data tracked alongside all of the other data that you have on a particular client. And once you have that, I can't sort of stress the importance of trying to ensure, the data accuracy and integrity, because that's super critical to be able to rely on this type of analysis. But once you have that, if you can run reports, you can segment your clients, you look at PPI, sort of by geography, by branch, by product, by gender. You could do all sorts of really great analysis on your clients if you have all of that data just embedded in your system, and a process for just collecting it regularly. We did a series of what we call poverty outreach reports, and we did a really interesting analysis in the Philippines across 10 different MFIs, and looking at across 3 metrics, what we call concentration, penetration, and scale. And it allows an organization to really look more deeply into, what's the overall total percentage of poor people they're serving, ideally be able to see the progress over time, but also helps you look sort of even on a regional basis at what percentage of the total poor in an area you're serving. So that's what we call the penetration.
Yeah.
I think that's what would be useful in this case, is to be able to take a look at, you're operating in a certain province, that 50% of that province is poor. Maybe you're only serving 2% of that 50%. Right. I think that's an indicator that a lot of people aren't looking at yet. They've just been focusing on the poverty outreach, or just the percentage of their clients that are poor. But if we really like to get more people looking at what we're calling penetration, and so how much of what percentage of the really poor in an area is that institution serving?